1. Assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, 1914. On June 28, 1914, in Sarajevo, Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary and his wife Sophie were shot dead by Gavrilo Princip, a Bosnian Serb nationalist tied to the Black Hand secret society. The assassination was a flashpoint in a tense Europe, where rival alliances, Triple Entente and Triple Alliance, were primed for conflict. Austria-Hungary issued an ultimatum to Serbia, which partially complied, but tensions escalated. Russia mobilized in defense of Serbia, Germany backed Austria-Hungary, and soon France and Britain entered the fray. Within weeks, the Great War erupted, consuming Europe and eventually drawing in nations from every continent. This single gunshot set in motion a chain reaction that killed millions and redrew the world map. 2. Assassination of Julius Caesar, 44 BCE. On March 15th, 44 BCE, Julius Caesar, Rome's most powerful leader, was surrounded by conspirators in the Senate and stabbed 23 times. The plot, led by Brutus, Cassius and others, aimed to restore the Republic and halt Caesar's consolidation of power. Instead, his death plunged Rome into chaos. Civil wars raged as Mark Antony, Octavian and other generals fought for control. Octavian's victory led to the birth of the Roman Empire, ending centuries of republican governance. Caesar's assassination not only reshaped Rome's political structure, but also intensified military campaigns abroad, as Rome sought to consolidate its new imperial order. 3. Assassination of King Henry IV of France, 1610. King Henry IV, known for his Edict of Nantes granting religious tolerance, was stabbed to death on May 14, 1610, in Paris by François Ravaillac, a Catholic zealot. Henry was preparing a major military campaign against the Spanish Habsburgs to support Protestant rebels in the Netherlands. His assassination halted France's intervention, altered the balance in the 80 Years' War, and destabilized the kingdom under the regency of his widow, Marie de Medici. The loss of his pragmatic leadership deepened France's internal religious tensions and indirectly fueled the larger 30 Years' War that would engulf much of Europe. 4. Assassination of Tsar Alexander II, 1881. On March 13, 1881, Tsar Alexander II of Russia was fatally wounded in St. Petersburg by members of the revolutionary group People's Will, who threw bombs at his carriage. Known as the Tsar Liberator for emancipating Russia's serfs, Alexander had been planning new reforms to modernize the empire. His death halted liberalization and ushered in an era of repression under his successor, Alexander III. Political dissent was crushed, yet revolutionary movements grew more radical. This climate of unrest contributed to instability that would feed into Russia's defeats in foreign wars and, eventually, the upheaval of the 20th century. 5. Assassination of Emperor Valentinian III, 455 CE. Valentinian III, ruler of the crumbling Western Roman Empire, was assassinated in Rome on March 16, 455. By officers loyal to the late General Flavius Aetius, whom Valentinian had murdered months earlier. The emperor's death created a power vacuum just as barbarian threats loomed. Within weeks, the Vandals, led by King Genseric, sailed to Italy and sacked Rome. The empire's defences collapsed further, and internal rivalries prevented effective resistance. Valentinian's assassination was one of the final nails in the coffin of the Western Roman Empire, hastening its fall to waves of invasions. 6. Assassination of the Duke of Guise, 1588. During the French Wars of Religion, Henry I, Duke of Guise, leader of the powerful Catholic League, was summoned to a royal meeting in Blois on December 23, 1588. There, King Henry III had him assassinated, fearing his influence and potential coup. The killing enraged Catholic factions, sparking renewed violence. Henry III himself was assassinated months later, allowing the Protestant Henry of Navarre to take the throne as Henry IV. This back and forth of political killings prolonged the Civil War, ensuring more years of bloodshed between Catholics and Huguenots before fragile peace returned. 7. Assassination of Abraham Lincoln, 1865. On April 14, 1865, 5 days after Confederate General Robert E. Lee surrendered, President Abraham Lincoln was shot at Ford's Theater by John Wilkes Booth, a Confederate sympathizer. Lincoln's vision for a compassionate Reconstruction died with him, replaced by harsher measures from radical Republicans. Southern resentment deepened, and violent insurgent groups like the Ku Klux Klan emerged, waging a domestic guerrilla war. Though the Civil War officially ended, the assassination ensured that political, racial, and regional divisions would fuel unrest and violence for decades. 8. Assassination of Prime Minister Spencer Perceval, 1812. On May 11, 1812, British Prime Minister Spencer Perceval was shot dead in the lobby of the House of Commons by merchant John Bellingham, who claimed personal grievances. Britain was already fighting Napoleonic France, and Perceval's death triggered political instability during a crucial phase of the war. Leadership changes slowed decision-making, hampering military coordination. Complicating matters, Britain was also drifting toward the War of 1812 with the United States. The assassination, though personal in motive, had international consequences by disrupting Britain's war strategy. 9. Assassination of Paul of Russia, 1801. Tsar Paul. I was strangled in his bedroom on March 23, 1801, by a group of officers angered by his erratic leadership and pro-French policies. His sudden death brought his son, Alexander I, to the throne. Alexander quickly shifted alliances, joining the coalition against Napoleon and drawing Russia into years of Napoleonic wars. Paul's murder not only altered Russia's foreign policy overnight, but also reshaped the broader European balance of power. Wars that might have been avoided became inevitable under the new leadership's aggressive stance. 10. Assassination of President William McKinley, 1901. On September 6, 1901, US President William McKinley was shot by anarchist Leon Czolgosz at the Pan American Exposition in Buffalo, New York. McKinley's death elevated Theodore Roosevelt to the presidency. Roosevelt's big stick diplomacy expanded US influence abroad, pushing the country toward greater military involvement on the global stage. America's role in international conflicts grew sharply, and its readiness to project power overseas set the stage for eventual involvement in World War I. This single act shifted the trajectory of US foreign policy for decades. 11. Assassination of Rafic Hariri, 2005. Former Lebanese Prime Minister Rafic Hariri was killed on February 14, 2005, in Beirut when a massive truck bomb detonated near his convoy, killing 21 others. Hariri had opposed Syrian influence in Lebanon, and his death triggered widespread protests known as the Cedar Revolution. International pressure forced Syria to withdraw its troops after nearly 30 years of occupation. However, the assassination also deepened sectarian divisions, fueling instability and sporadic violence that would contribute to later conflicts in the region, including spillovers from the Syrian civil war. 12th. Assassination of Anwar Sadat, 1981. Egyptian President Anwar Sadat was assassinated on October 6, 1981, during a military parade in Cairo by Islamist militants within his own army. Sadat had signed the Camp David Accords, making peace with Israel, a move that enraged many in the Arab world. His death threw Egypt into political uncertainty, and although his successor Hosni Mubarak maintained the peace treaty, tensions in the region remained high. The assassination encouraged extremist movements, destabilized Egypt's domestic politics, and influenced the trajectory of Middle Eastern conflicts for decades.